Cryptocurrency can be confusing and hard. At Space Coast Crypto Consulting, we make cryptocurrency easy for you to learn and understand. In a world of uncertainty and out-of-control central banks, it's our mission to empower you with the knowledge that you need to confidently control and grow your own crypto portfolio. Call now to begin your crypto journey. 321-412-4021. That's Space Coast Crypto Consulting at 321-412-4021.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This segment will be a fast one, an exciting one. We have the guys from TimeDAO with us again. We have David and Alexandre. Welcome back. First segment was just interesting when you start talking about decentralization, and we're going to talk about blockchain and how we're going to see how blockchain is going to be affected in our everyday life as we move ahead. So why don't we explore that a little bit more? They sent us some article. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Alexandre? You want to take that?
Yeah, of course. So the first half of the show, we talked about DeFi and how blockchain solved the problem of middlemen in finance, in banking, actually. And so now we can jump on other cases where we can simply build some networks, peer-to-peer networks with different products, and avoiding not only banks but governments and simply businesses. So we on that article actually that I sent you guys, there were a bunch of different industries that could be disrupted with blockchain and with that concept of decentralization. Such as multiple products, and we can probably go over it. There was a healthcare, supply chains, all that stuff, and I also have there are also some concepts that I don't grasp, such as recently we've probably heard, well, you guys probably heard as well in the news, some video games where decentralized video games where people start earning money. So I haven't got it. Yeah, I didn't get into the wave, but yeah, definitely. So we can talk about a bunch of stuff and and maybe some different projects as well.
Do you guys think when you talk about blockchain and you talk about industries, how much as a resistance as government has with the Bitcoin and coins, do you think how much involvement do you think the government's going to get involved in this? Do you when they jump in, is it going to be all hands on deck?
Well, governments are actually using blockchain technology.
There are some now, and I understand there's some countries, and that was one of our first episodes when we talked about.
No, I mean in other industries, because it is a way to record data in a manner that cannot be altered. So like one example, and I'll just use this example because we just had a launch here on the Space Coast last night. What was the launch?
SpaceX.
Name?
SpaceX.
But it was
SpaceX. Yes.
It was
unbelievable.
Inspiration 4.
Inspiration 4. Yes.
Right,
so it was the first all civilian
crew
that went up to space, and they're orbiting space for the next couple of days. And anyway, so I know in the aerospace industry that on their they actually track their parts, like the government agencies track parts on the blockchain, and they can tell some really interesting things, like how many times a bolt was twisted, and they track like little detailed information on that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A bolt.
Yeah.
It's all recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Twisted.
That's right, because at the core of it, the blockchain is just a accounting book. So you write information into it, like numbers.
Right.
And the big thing is those numbers you can't change them, you can falsify them, you can't alter them, and that's and it's portable. It's like available everywhere as long as you have the internet. So that's the cool thing. That's the revolutionary thing. You can plug it to many different sensors, objects, cell phones, whatever. And it becomes a huge and viable database, I think.
Yeah, another example would be like for supply chain tracking. Like for example, we've spoken about VeChain, their technology that tracks food sources. And it's like, if something is organic, how do you know that it's organic? You just trust that the label is labeled correctly. And then you come into these issues where you have like a bad batch of spinach, and they have to just like recall the spinach everywhere and throw everything away. So through blockchain technology, they'll be able to track exactly what batch went bad and really localize that, where they have to get rid of the spinach and cut down on food wastes and things. But some really cool things, like I think the fishing industry with the supply chain, I can't remember the exact percentage, but a majority of the tuna fishing that is done is actually done in during times that are not supposed to be fished, and in areas that are not supposed to be fished. So we have this like overfishing problem as well. And so blockchains are tracking like the catching of tuna, and then it can also track like where it was caught, how deep of waters it's caught, and then every hand that it passes throughout the way, all the way getting to the grocery store and to your home. But something like that, how well does it work unless like everybody is on board? It's like, it's going to take time for all of these businesses to get on board with it, and it'll be like large corporations at first, and then it'll go to the smaller entities, almost because like it'll be more of like a marketing thing. Like they just want to keep up with what other people are doing before it really catches on, in my opinion. So. Well,
yeah, I mean, with beef, beef has different grades, right? You have choice, like a grade A, and then you have like a prime. Well, the prime, is very, very controlled. Very controlled amount of ranchers get that prime label and are able to then harvest and then distribute to prime steak houses right around the country and the world. Same thing with the tuna. Now we're not talking about the albacore, that they catch in nets and everything else. We're talking about like those Pacific big eye, beautiful tuna, sashimi grade. Those fish are like they're almost tagged like right away. And it's like some of that tuna has like serial numbers, because when you're selling tuna at, $20 a pound, and these are, 800-pound fish, like these are very expensive fish. These are prize fish that are going to go to the market. And of course, you're going to see that supply chain, so that when you do sit down at a 5-star Michelin, whatever, restaurant, and you're going to have like some of the best seafood in the world, they want you to know that it is what you're paying for. So those kind of things. And again, for the consumer to know that their fish, their meat, their produce is the product that they're buying. So there's no like weird, mishandling or anything else. So you have QC all the way through from harvest to table. And I think that would only improve everybody's experience. What do you guys think?
Well, definitely. I think that, actually to answer that, Jesse, when we go to the grocery store, usually when we pick up the food that we want to buy, oftentimes it takes a lot of effort and time to get all the exact information about like where does that food come from, what is it made of, like how has it been how do you say that, just like harvested and all that stuff. And so I think that in food generally, information has a lot of value for the consumer. And the fact that now businesses that take those blockchain solutions are able to provide that information, that can change a lot for the end consumer that might trust more their grocery stores and opt for different ways that they eat. So.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I'm an advocate for growing your own food and buying local and everything else. Fish for your own food and so on like that. But I'm not about to butcher a cow. But I also want to know that my cow's not, fed with antibiotics or, harmful growth hormones or something like that. So for me, when I do purchase something, that I'm not going to harvest myself, I'm not going to take down a cow and tackle it and butcher it myself. I have to trust, whoever I'm purchasing it from, correct? So again, it's not for everything, but I think that's just an example of how the blockchain can be used to better secure products and services, in the future. Again, instead of just taking somebody's just word for it, like, oh yeah, this is we never put pesticides on this piece of fruit, just eat it without washing it, and again, a little bit more security, and I think security overall, and less ways to manipulate it, less ways to compromise it. The information. So that, again, the medicines or anything else that you're taking for yourself. The history and the chain of supply. All the way up from the manufacturer all the way to the pharmacist.
Exactly. In fact, it's what you're talking about is transparency.
100%.
So you can't. The blockchain doesn't allow you to make sure that the information at the beginning is correct.
Right.
But it makes sure that it is transmitted in an unaltered in the transparent way and untouched way.
Right.
And what blockchain brings, and that you're right, and it's very powerful because information, and especially now with the climate change question, knowing where things come from and how they've been made and all of that, and knowing that that this information has been transmitted in a verifiable way and unaltered way, it's very it has a lot of value, and you can go for food, but for clothes and electronics and pretty much everything we consume. And so I think that's a great field for developing blockchain applications and tools basically. Mm-hmm. And it's gonna happen. It's happening already.
Yeah, and we talked about last week. We talked about how it could be used for voting, maybe to fix some issues that we have in governments and voting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hopefully.
And I'm really interested in real estate and the blockchain. And you can have like land titles that are tracked to the blockchain. Like a lot of those processes are so paper intensive, and documents get lost, or like in some countries that they can get wiped out by a hurricane, and those papers. And to have the property and ownership, the property rights of your land, of what's yours, and not being able to find those records. So it could really give a lot of empowerment to people in these third world countries and things. Not only that, though, in real estate, you can tokenize like homes. And
exactly.
There are companies that are working on it, but it's very interesting because you can actually go in like as an investor with multiple people and share this property and have everything be like mapped out on the blockchain in a easier way as far as legality and everything.
Well,
and that's
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, being in an industry, it would also help curb the big title fraud that's been going on. Mm-hmm. People pretending it's you, and then getting access to your title, and then being able to refinance your home and taking all the equity out. I mean, so title fraud is a big thing. And again, I think the transparency and the security. I think those are the big fundamentals that attract a lot of people in industry to decentralized DeFi blockchain. Yeah, I think real estate's a great component. I think land title, because there's a lot of people who don't have that. I mean, if you were to purchase land in Central America, for instance, they don't really, it's almost like it's such a archaic system that they're using. They don't really have the technology. Here in at least the States, when you hold a title, it actually means something. In other places, the government could take your property at any time, because you really, you're almost borrowing it. Like with Mexico, you lease it from the government almost. You never really have land, a title to a land. So, I think it could solve a lot of issues, and I'm excited for it.
Definitely. And David, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to go back on what you say, Jennifer, about tokenizing real estate, and that's really interesting because, real estate is a major investment vessel. So people invest in real estate to store their money and have it grow. But it's a high ticket most of the time, and so tokenizing real estate would open, for example, Western properties, paying properties to people from countries that are less I don't know, countries that are more disadvantaged, and so those people could enter and buy for a small fraction of something that would make their wealth grow, and not being impaired by high ticket entry to go into real estate. And I see that as a huge tool to equalize, like level the playing fields between Western countries and more poor countries, to give those people more more leverage on the global wealth and how it is distributed.
Definitely. And by the way, like right now we're talking a lot about decentralization on to track stuff. We talk about supply chains. Now we talk about the tokenization of homes. But I think that there's a big part that we're missing here, which is about technology itself. So most of the technology that we use today is almost every time centralized. We use Google pretty much every day of our lives. We use Facebook or Instagram and all that stuff. And so I think that there's a big part about decentralization, which is owning our data, owning what we do, and as a community, instead of being a simple business that has the ownership. And so we can transition the same way let's say, I think the last episode we talked about StorageIG, which decentralizes cloud storage, and that goes with the project that we're having. Well, TimeDAO for the ones who listened to the previous episode. But basically, instead of having a company who stores files and images, all that stuff, every single person on a network can be able to store part of these files on their own computers for the whole network to work. And that's completely crazy, the fact that we can do that today.
Yeah, I think it's when you talk about it's a safety net in some ways, don't you think? Especially, you just go back a little bit. I've been just sitting back and listening. I'm the non-techie of the group, and so I'm sitting here and I'm absorbing all this technology that it's just a wave to me, because I'm the
crypto wave.
It's just a giant wave. And to me, when you look at the real estate, I looked at it and I said, that's just one big safety net. You want to be an investment, here in America, you say, God, we got to get out of here now. I want to buy land in Belize.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? As Jesse's saying, you know what? If it gets into a safety net, I know my title is safe now. I know it's locked away it's in a blockhouse. It's safe. It's up here. It's in a universe. It's locked in.
Yeah.
Or my title. What's happening is, as people look and as we talk about this episode, and it's so tech heavy for folks that, as we explore what's going on, it's just so what's the word I'm looking at? There's a growth that's just emerging so much, and we talk about niche and we're talking about different industries, banking and real estate, and food and shopping, just how we'll be shopping, the evolution of what's happening.
Tech explosion. Yes, we're just moving forward into a new era, and this era is going to be based on data, and
it is very data driven, and you're seeing
and our
happen.
attention. Like when you're not. When you're using a service and you're not paying for it, then you are the product. And so to be able to take control of your own data and to monetize your own data yourself, like there are these attention tokens now where you can actually get paid to look at ads and things. And so to be able to take ownership of your own data is very powerful.
And I think that's the key. I think we've been, and I don't know which one of you guys mentioned Google, but I think people have been Googleized once too many now. And I think they want to take back their Googling.
You heard it here first, folks. Look, take back your Google.
They want to take back their Google. No, they want to take control again. And I think exactly what these guys have created has, at TimeDAO, we have
TimeDAO.
Well, not for nothing, there is, in the technology age, you also want it to be more equitable. like we mentioned, given third world countries the same privilege as us first world problem people, and
People.
and maybe that farmer who wants to grow coffee beans in Central America, they should be getting a little bit more of that $5 cup that Starbucks is pouring than because for one cup of coffee that Starbucks can make off of these beans, these poor farmers are making $5 a bushel. They're working all day. They're just for a little bit. So if they were able to have a little bit more of that equity, that going from from the harvesting to the retail, and somewhere it's more equitable, so these farmers can actually start to succeed and see wealth in some of these poor countries, and that goes for parts of Africa and anywhere a good bean is grown. And that's just one example. The coffee industry, I think, is and there's because there's been so much exploitation. You actually see where they have to put a label on there, grown with with farmers, right? So they have this like label that says this has been fair trade, because of a lot of times they're getting beans for for all kinds of things, and then they're shipped from all around the world, from poor countries, and then roasted and brewed, and we're paying $6 for something that those poor farmers they're making $100 a week. And they're working 12-hour days, from sun up to sundown, trying to provide this. So making things more equitable, it goes beyond that little fair trade label on your precious little, pound of coffee. Let's make it to where everybody, can rise from this technology.
We're gonna see.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that what is like the power of blockchain and decentralization, that's what it is. It's really evening the playing field and giving, like regular people, like everyday people, the same power, whereas they're born like in America or in Africa or wherever in the world.
It's a bottom-up approach. Yeah, a bottom-up approach instead of a top-down approach.
And I'll
exactly.
I'll show you a really good example, and that's with like CBD. A lot of people want to know that the hemp that they're getting the CBD from wasn't pesticides, wasn't a bad strain of hemp, because not all industrial hemp is made for CBD. Okay, CBD being promoted as a health product, okay, should come from pharmaceutical hemp, not the industrial hemp that's made for paper, rope, and other things. Okay, and so the industrial hemp, CBD hemp. And then, of course, then you get into medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, whatever else. That stuff is completely from source. It's the whole vertical. Like a lot of these states, and I know this because one of the we used to produce for one of the foremost advocates for marijuana, and when he goes to different states that open up for medical or full recreational, the big thing is well, how do we do it? Not everybody could just grow and then sell it to the shop. It has to be a whole vertical. So from the seed to the plant to this, it's all serialized. Like you could scan your weed and know where it came from, how it was planted, the day of harvest, the day of everything is right there. Mm-hmm. And I think when we start to get into now that application of having the full vertical, of knowing where it started, and then all the way to the consumer, it's kind of cool that your weed may have a serial number, and you're able to see exactly how it was grown and the exact strain and everything else. That kind of confidence for consumers, I think, is also going to be so much more heralded than just buying just anything off the street or black market, and maybe make things a little bit more, again, with transparency, more legal, so there's no part of that transaction where the cartel or somebody else is able to get in and then and manipulate it or whatever else and get in and disrupt that supply chain. So it's going to be complete vertical, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that from food to table, from farm to table, from coffee field, tobacco field, from again cigars to tea to coffee. All these commodities have an opportunity now to know exactly for the consumer what you're getting and who was a part of the process, and rewarding all those in that supply chain.
That's a really good point. Now, I wanted to bring it on to privacy and anonymity, and I think there's a big misconception between the two. Like a lot of people think of Bitcoin that it's anonymous, and it really isn't. But there are some different tokens that do offer privacy, but there is a difference between privacy and anonymity. Can you explain the difference? Because you could have something that's anonymous, but be not as private, and vice versa.
Okay, I'm gonna chime in here. I'm not an expert, but so you use Bitcoin, and then I think that is the best example, because it's also the main misconception is that Bitcoin is anonymous and allows like fraudulent transaction and drug dealing and whatever, which is complete bollocks, by the way. It's completely bunker. It's if you're the FBI, you can track people using Bitcoin transaction really easily. Another coin that allows anonymity is, so Bitcoin allows privacy. So your name is not written on the blockchain address, on the wallet address. So you can't be tied up directly to like your transaction. So that's privacy. What like Monero brings privacy. So what Monero does is you have a wallet address, and your transactions are sent in a way that it can be tracked from the sender to the receiver, and that's what privacy means in that case. You can't you can track back transactions, so you can track back the coins, which you can do in Bitcoin. You can't track transactions from wallet to wallet very easily. But in Monero, you can't, because this link is disrupted by the system itself, which has been built as a privacy tool. So that, I think that's the main difference between, how I could explain the difference between anonymity and privacy.
So the best way to buy drugs is cash.
Okay.
Or Monero.
Or Monero.
And I think that there were many stories about Monero, or like every time you read those articles to bash crypto, I mean more than 50% of them talk about Monero, and that's not a surprise. Definitely, I think that all the money laundering goes towards that crypto. So of course there are ups and downs with crypto, but I'm sure. Well, of course, I'm more than sure that there are some positive use cases of privacy and anonymity, basically control over your data, and maybe not for, of course, money laundering, but for anything else, security. We can talk about probably healthcare, when you don't want insurance companies to have all of your private healthcare health information. So that can also that's also an example of the necessity of privacy in networks in general.
So there's some times where you want privacy, and sometimes where you don't necessarily need it. Now, going back to TimeDAO, and then we're going to kind of wrap things up here. Are there any applications for TimeDAO that we haven't talked about yet, or some cool ways, like cool ideas that maybe are not in the works yet, but that you are having some ideas about that can be used in TimeDAO? Because I know we have talked about several off of air. So just to kind of bring it all back to your project that you're working on.
Sure. Well, I think David wants to answer that, but I'll give a short sneak peek actually. So one of the use cases that I imagine with time capsule. So by the way, for the ones who are listening to this episode only, so we built time capsules, and one of the use cases that we can do with those private capsules is to secure evidence or things that happen that we don't want to reveal to the public right now, and that we want to, in certain ways, expose later on with the use of these capsules. Because number one, they're completely private, they're not alterable, and second, well, there's the use case of the time capsule, which delays the time where the information is released. So that's one of the use cases.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like when they seal evidence, like for a criminal case or something.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is. And then it cannot be manipulated, right? It would stop a lot of fraud and manipulation that could have with tampering with evidence. And And if
it's a really good use case for whistleblowing as well. So if you're a whistleblower, our solution, like our tech, allows you to encrypt data in a time capsule in total privacy. In fact, in total anonymity. So how it works is everything is encrypted on your navigator, so on your computer. Nothing goes out in the blockchain except for encrypted data and encrypted IDs. So a whistleblower could, I don't know, like create a time capsule with some sensitive files and just send it on the blockchain to be released in 6 months. And the guy has the time to finish his contract and leave his job and maybe go to a secure place. And then as his time capsule released, and nobody can't really figure out who did it. And I think it could be a powerful tool for more transparency, for more disclosure. So that's not our main focus right now, but that's an idea we've been, dabbing with a bit.
That's a different use, especially today. Government work and FBI and
I could
CIA
see
work.
how it could be good. Also flawed, though. I mean, where you can release FUD into the market as well.
Well, it's very, like, as every tool, you can use it both ways, like for good stuff and bad stuff. We want to give the people, obviously we're gonna do our best to steer the usage toward like good stuff, basically.
Yes.
That's what we intend to do, and that's what we would like people to see doing. But we can't really avoid the fact that people are gonna try to do mischievous things with what we create. And that's, I think, it's an issue. It's something that exists, but it can't. It doesn't has to be mitigated by the technology itself. It's something that comes with creating new stuff. Like a knife can be a super useful tool or something very dangerous. And I think it's more about education and the ethic of the context where the tool is being used that will change whether it's used as a something for bad or something for good. So what we would like to do at the end of the day is giving people the option to create stuff, like a lot of use cases that we haven't thought of, and that's the exciting part for me at least.
Well said.
That's you guys have just an amazing product that's coming out on the horizon. And when is your initial?
There you go.
Let's as we start wrapping up. Why don't you give us that your initial? You have a couple of a pre-launch date and then you have a launch date. Why don't you give us those two dates again for our audience so that we could wrap up with that and give you a little promotion there.
Sure. So small disclaimer. So we have the first rounds. We have 4 funding rounds, and the first round with an advantageous rate, of course, starts September 24th. So in 8 days, next Friday. So there's only 195 spots available. So first come, first serve. Have fun. Everything's going to be on our social media. So links are going to be in the description, I believe. That's pretty much it. Then we have the public sale, which is in December. So that's for later.
Great.
Yeah, we have 2 more investing rounds in between with different rates. You can check it out on our website. It's pretty detailed.
Yes, we've added that to the links to the U page and to our notes for our to the YouTube page, so that our audience and our viewers can catch and see what you guys have to offer. So I guess I just for all of us, I just say thank you again to you guys.
Thank you very much, guys.
What a great show again.
What a great discussion. So
yeah,
much.
It boggles my mind. When I'm quiet, it means I'm just absorbing it all because it's just too much for me sometimes, and I just have to sit back and just enjoy it all. You guys were great once again. I want to say thank you to David and Alexandre for joining us from TimeDAO, and thank you everybody from the Crypto Wave cast here, Jesse, Jennifer, and thank you. Have a great week.
Thanks,
And
Joey.
be safe, and thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Guy.
This is usually
Thanks,
Jennifer's
guys.
job, but I'm doing it today since I messed up going in, so I'm saying goodbye. Ciao all.
Thank you again, guys.
Bye guys,
And
thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.